Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're jumping right into something pretty intense. We're unpacking workplace culture, mental health, and that heavy, almost invisible weight of institutional power dynamics. If you've ever worked in a strict hierarchy, maybe academia, corporate life, really any big institution, understanding how coercion actually works is absolutely crucial. We're going to walk through a fascinating case study that shows exactly how prestige can be weaponized against the very people it's supposed to elevate. So, let's get into it. Academic growth requires sacrifice. I mean, it sounds noble, doesn't it? Almost inspiring, right? But I really want you to stop and ask yourself, what happens when the required sacrifice inside an institution morphs from just being academic to intensely psychological and then, eventually, to something deeply, dangerously physical? Like, how does a system actually convince you to trade your own well-being for an opportunity? Section 1. The prestigious dream. Let's talk about the allure of a national fellowship. Because to truly understand the trap, we first got to understand the bait. Let's look at our case study, Anjali. Coming from a small town, she somehow managed to score a highly coveted PhD seat under the super prestigious National Fellowship at Central University. I mean, for her, walking through those heavy university gates, that was the achievement of a lifetime. She was so determined to make her family proud. And honestly, on day one, she was greeted with what genuinely felt like true mentorship. There was this confident senior, Vikram, who warmly helped her navigate the lab protocols and library access. He even introduced her to Dr. Sharma. Now, Dr. Sharma was the senior professor, basically known as the father figure of the whole department. He told Anjali she had great potential. Obviously, she felt honored, relieved, and honestly, just deeply safe. But as we're going to see, that warmth, it was really just a precursor to coercion and exploitation. Which brings us to Section 2, the academic trap, the imbalance of power. What Anjali actually experienced here is just a textbook institutional power imbalance. The whole system relies on the simple fact that the subordinate, Anjali, has everything to lose, while her superiors basically hold all the keys to her future. And notice the pacing here. It's super insidious. It didn't start with wild, extreme demands, right? We go from that day one relief to a few weeks later where it's just small favors, Vikram asking her to handle his data analysis, as good practice. But then it escalates. Suddenly, Dr. Sharma is assigning her departmental filings, even personal errands. Before long, Anjali is suffocating in chronic lab isolation, staying until midnight, literally terrified of failing. Her boundaries were just systematically eroded. And this coercion relied so heavily on veiled threats. Vikram made the culture crystal clear. He'd say things like, "In this university, juniors help seniors. Otherwise, things can get difficult during your review." Okay, so the absolutely crucial point to grasp here is that this wasn't some friendly invitation to collaborate. This was a shakedown. Vikram was leveraging his seniority to force Anjali to do his data analysis, all while taking total credit for her core research ideas. He basically weaponized the university's unwritten culture just to trap her. And get this, the pressure didn't just come from her peers. Dr. Sharma, remember the supposed father figure, he used immense gaslighting. Whenever Anjali tried to just bring up her own research timeline, his tone would turn completely ice cold. He'd tell her, if you can't handle pressure, maybe a PhD isn't for you. I can always recommend someone more resilient. That is an explicit threat to replace her on the National Fellowship. So now, she's perfectly manipulated from both sides. She's getting squeezed by her senior peer and structurally threatened by her commanding professor. So if we look at the exact anatomy of this abuse, it's pretty clear-cut. We've got stolen credit, forced administrative tasks, personal errands for her bosses, and these constant looming threats of failure and replacement. Now, why does this matter to us? Well, because recognizing these dual-sided manipulative tactics is completely essential for anyone operating within a hierarchy. This wasn't just a tough academic program, right? It was a systematic dismantling of her professional boundaries, fully enforced by fear. Moving into Section 3, the physical breaking point, a body in crisis. So as all these demands just kept piling up, that fear became completely all-consuming. Anjali literally stopped eating properly. Her mind was just racing at this frantic pace. What if they reject my synopsis? What if Vikram totally ruins my reputation? She was entirely trapped in this toxic ecosystem with absolutely no one to trust. And, that kind of suffocating emotional weight, it has to go somewhere. In Anjali's case, it went directly into her physical body. Just a normal afternoon, she's standing near the laboratory printer, and all that emotional weight suddenly manifests as sheer physical agony. Out of nowhere, a sharp, familiar cramp hits her abdomen, a really vicious, sudden twist.
20. She checked her phone calendar in absolute shock because her actual period date was still 20 days away. 20 days! Her biological cycle had always been completely regular. Yet, the immense toll of this toxic environment had essentially hijacked her body's natural clock.
What Anjali experienced here is a massive hormonal disruption. And let's be clear, this wasn't just, being tired or a little stressed out. This was a severe biological shock. That extreme chronic stress basically forced her body's normal physiological functions to completely break down, forcing her period to arrive nearly 3 weeks early. She rushed to the restroom, and honestly, seeing that sudden flow, the sheer reality of her physical breakdown just hit her all at once. She leaned against the wall and wept. Her body was screaming at her that it could not endure this abuse for another second. Section 4, the survival instinct, reclaiming agency. It's exactly right here in the very depths of this intense physical and emotional breakdown that our whole narrative shifts. Wiping away her tears, Anjali looked at herself in that restroom mirror. And yeah, the fear was absolutely still there. But something much more powerful actually rose up to meet it, the raw, undeniable survival instinct of a scholar. She made some vital internal shifts right then and there. First, she finally acknowledged the physical warning. Her body wasn't failing her. It was actually protecting her, forcing her to pay attention. Second, she had this light bulb realization. Staying silent would only enable her abusers to permanently destroy both her health and her career. So third, she made the definitive decision to reclaim her agency. She took a deep breath, walked right out of that restroom, and mapped out a highly concrete survival strategy. Step 1, book an appointment with the university counselor the very next morning. She needed professional institutional support. Step 2, aggressively document every single coerced task, every stolen idea, every personal errand. She needed to build an undeniable paper trail. And step 3, use all of that documentation to fight back against Dr. Sharma and Vikram. Honestly, this is the ultimate actionable takeaway for anyone out there facing coercive institutional power. Documentation and external support. Those are your strongest armor, period. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. When institutions demand our silence, what is the true cost of our compliance? For Anjali, that cost almost amounted to her total physical and professional destruction. Look, understanding the mechanics of academic and institutional coercion isn't just about spotting a bad mentor. It's about recognizing how power actually operates and finding the courage to reclaim your agency long before the cost becomes too high to pay. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and seriously, never ignore what your body and mind are telling you.